Welcome to the Strategy Sherpa Show, a series of organic discussions between hosts David Chavez and a variety of notable business leaders centered around their most significant failures and how they handled those challenges, so listeners can learn from their most teachable moments and apply the lessons to their organizations. Now, here's your host, David Chavez.
Hey everyone, this is David Chavez. It's the Strategy Sherpa Show, and welcome. It's Monday. Yes, it's Monday. The day everybody wakes up and go, oh, it's Monday. So, all right, we're getting started. Preston on the East Coast, Varun on the West Coast, and having to deal with trying to wake up early just for the show. All right, welcome both of you, and we'll get to you in just a second and have you introduce yourselves. Let's start off with the webinars that are going on and some of the events we have going on. Hey, Preston, you are doing a webinar on Wednesday, right? Or Thursday? Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Time, and it's for an hour, and you're going to be doing it on mastering efficiency, process-driven tactics for cost savings. So give the audience a little flavor.
So this is a webinar about how you can just really save money by being more efficient in your processes in your organization. From onboarding people to your manufacturing or whatever sort of business you're in processes, and ways to find waste in a very simple manner.
Yeah, it's funny because when you talk about it like that, when we go into companies and we're starting a relationship with them, one of the biggest things we find is that a lot of inefficiencies and a lot of cash tied up in really bad processes, right? So,
right.
Well, yeah. So, or non-existent processes, they just don't even exist sometimes too. So very good. All right, then we're doing on the June 13th, we have Mastering Time Management, Prioritize to Thrive with Lisa Jane Vargas. And if any of you know Lisa Jane out there, you know how diligent she is and disciplined she is. So she is no one better to do a time management workshop. And then Warren Sager and I are doing a scaling up workshop in San Diego in just about a month now, about June 25th. And that's an all-day workshop where we're actually walking you and your team through scaling up. I think we have probably about 12 or 13 registrations. We do 20. So we have about 7 or 8 seats left open and would love to have you join us. So, and no better time to go to San Diego than in at the end of June. And let's get started. So let's start off by introducing Varun. And Varun, you're on mute, so hopefully you can unmute yourself there, and then we can get you to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up at Assured Strategy.
Sure. Thanks, David. Morning. Morning, everyone. So my name is Varun Mehandru. I've been in the IT space now for 20 plus years, mostly around healthcare IT, working for several organizations that small and big that pretty much use technology to transform some aspect of the healthcare space or the other. We actually we were a customer of Assured Strategy back in the day. And that's how I got introduced to David and the team at Assured Strategy. David came in, and basically the company that I was working for back then, they were in a mode to sell. It was a owner-run company, and the person wanted to sell. So he brought David in to pretty much transform his leadership team and his business processes and structure and strategy. Which is what we were all part of, spent about a couple years, 2.5 years-ish with David, learning about the scaling up system, implemented it, and then successfully actually were able to sell the company because of a lot of what we learned through Assured Strategy. So that was sort of my foray into learning about leadership coaching and strategy coaching. And then over the years since then, I have pretty much used some aspect of scaling up or the other in whichever business I've been in. So when it came to, a few months ago, I reached out to David and I said, look, I think I'm ready to make the jump to come on the other side. So that's sort of how it happened. I'm pumped, happy to be here and learning a lot.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you here. So welcome, Varun. Thank you for introducing yourself. And then we also have one of my colleagues, Preston. He just spoke a little bit about the webinar he's doing. But Preston, introduce everybody a little bit to you.
Yeah, so my name is Preston Law. I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt, and I have over 30 years of experience in starting and growing companies. One of those companies happened to be when I was working with Varun, and I was at the time, also a assured strategy client. I really focus on, servicing customers and delivering your products efficiently. And I've used the lean and agile methodologies, across a variety of small and large businesses. And I would say my real belief is that processes help a business scale while continuing to innovate. And a lot of times people think that, you put in a process that stops you from innovating, and it should not be that way.
Oh, I love that you said that, because when I first started putting the processes, as we were starting to scale here at Assured Strategy, I started putting processes in place and everybody told me I was stifling their creativity. And I was like going, no, we're not stifling creativity. We need to have consistency. So
Right.
I definitely didn't want to stifle the creativity. So that it was exactly the opposite that I was trying to do. So I love that you said that. So so everyone, just to let you know, so today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the what we do here at the Strategy Sherpa Show is we usually have a guest that comes on, maybe a past client or just the CEO of another company or a leader in another company, and they come in and they share one of the biggest mistakes they've made. And today we have two of my colleagues on, and what we're going to talk about is some of the biggest mistakes we've seen out there. And we're going to try to center in on change management. So organizational change of some kind, because usually when clients are bringing us in, they want something different out of their company. It's not that they're in trouble or anything like that. They could be in a little bit of trouble, but they also, a lot of people come to us just because they know that they're not getting the company to maximize what they're supposed to be doing. And so we go in there and help them. So let me start off with just getting the topic going. And I want to make this a free-flowing conversation so we can just talk about these different questions. So Varun, I'm going to start with you. The importance of change management with dealing with organizational change. Why do we need to manage change? Like, what have you seen that's gone so bad when change wasn't managed effectively?
Yeah, so I'll sort of paint the picture in a mergers and acquisitions arena, which I'm sure a lot of our listeners are used to being part of organizations that are either being bought or sold, or they're part of some sort of M&A. And my experience has been organizations where change was actually managed through the process of the buy or sell. Those organizations fared a lot better in terms of its people, its processes, the efficiency, and the outcome of that change when it was consciously being managed through the process, when the people were managed, when there were aspects of what that change was, making sure that those people understood the change, the reasons for the change, and the entire process was followed through. Those people ended up staying with organizations much longer, were much more happier, right? So I think that sometimes what we see is a change happens for a reason, and then the people who architected that change sort of walk away to their next thing. And then the change, whatever that event is, it's sort of left to sit with whoever is there. And, I think that's a mistake that sometimes organizations make because, without being consciously managed, it can actually lead to, worse things.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that putting a plan in place. And Preston, you were shaking your head. Did you have something to add to this?
Mm-hmm. No, I was, just yes.
Yes. So when what you're saying, Varun, is that when you manage change, the outcomes are much better often than when you don't manage change. Okay, and so can change get personal at times with people? I mean, that's probably something that all of us want to really think about a little bit because a lot of times there's a little bit of defensiveness that happens. So talk a little bit about change getting personal with people.
Yeah, so I think that, again, this was an observation. I went through it personally, so I can speak to it from my vantage point along with my coworkers that were sort of along the ride here. And what all of us realized was that, yes, the change was happening at the organization level, but the impact of that change was personal to me. I walked away from work constantly thinking about what that change was, why was it being made. I wasn't asked about it. I did not sometimes agree to it as well, right? So these are all feelings that come into an employee, right? That he or she is going part of or being part of that change, and you can walk away with such personal emotions that are tied to the change. So that, again, to your previous point, David, if those aspects of change are not managed, right, it can have way worse effects on an employee's morale, leave alone the employee's efficiency at the end of the day. So, that was sort of my takeaway that, look, it's happening to me. I better acknowledge it. I better, sort of walk through the process of it. Otherwise, I'm going to be left with, questions that are unanswered, a morale that's not good, and then it'll impact my work one way or the other.
Yes, very, very well said. So like when you're going through change, there's different emotions that go on, is what you're saying. And one of those emotions that often come up is fear, right? Fear of the change. Did you have something to add there, Preston?
No, it's like fear of, well, not so much the change, but what's going to happen to me after the change.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Well, that's fear, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big thing that, happened to me. And, that's a key thing, is to allow people to voice their fears and make sure that they're heard as you go through the change process.
Yeah, most definitely. And I like how you said that, help them get through the change process. So what as a leader, am I not brought into the reasons behind the change? How does that impact my thinking? Like when I'm trying to lead the thing through every of my team through change, and then I don't even understand the reasons behind the change.
Yeah, so I think that one of the things I want to add to the previous point tied to this is, so I 100% agree, right? It starts off with fear, but what is fear rooted in, right? Fear is rooted in denial, right? You are coming from a place of denial where you either minimize the change, you either look the other way, right? You sort of say, well, yeah, no, it's not that big a deal, or it's not happening to me, right? So it starts off a place of denial, which leads to fear, right? And then ultimately, the point that you raised, David, about if there is not a conversation, if there is not transparency in terms of the reasons behind why the changes happen, right? And look, I completely get it. Sometimes change is such that an organization cannot share all aspects of why a change is happening, right? Sometimes the leaders are responsible for taking an organization through change, and things can only be shared to a certain extent. That's how businesses work. That's understandable. But I think that when a leader is empathetic towards his or her people and actually sits down with them and walks them through what he or she can share versus what he or she cannot share, right? I think that sort of a very open and honest conversation builds trust, right? And David, we talk about trust
Yeah.
all day long here.
Yeah. Hey, Varun, I hate to interrupt you right in the middle of trust, but we're a live radio show, so we have to take a break right now, and we'll be right back. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show, and we interrupted Varun right in the middle of an important thing about teamwork. So we'll come back and start off there. Be back in just a moment.
Welcome back to the Strategy Sherpa Show with David Chavez. Have a question for David or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show.
Hey everyone, this is David Chavez. We are back with the Strategy Sherpa Show, and I have Varun and Preston with me, and we are talking about change. And right before the break, Varun started talking about trust in change. Let's go there, Varun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so as I was saying, right, I think that when it comes to change, the transparency that is around change, acknowledging that aspect of it, and actually taking the time and coming in with the right intention, taking the time to sit down with the people that are impacted with the change and just having a conversation that, look, here's what's happened. Here's what I can tell you. Here's what I can't tell you. And that's all fair, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You know, one of the exercises that I've done is, you know, I call it, you know, a lightning round. So I give everybody 2 minutes to talk and say, what are their emotions around the change? And, you know, hopefully people are, you know, honest and they see that you're listening, and that's a big help. And, you know, the other thing is just getting everyone involved in the plan for the change. You know, give everyone a job.
I also like the way you talked about that in the group, but you know, and you said then you hope everyone's honest. Well, that's where the trust work needs to be done all the time, so that when these change things come around, then we already have that trust built. Well, we'll get them to share with us what their fears are around the change, and they'll do it pretty honestly if we built that trust.
Yeah, and you know, coming from you know, out of the Assured Strategy program, and you know, Varun and our teams knew that we trusted them, but the other teams that we were merging with, they had nothing but fear and distrust, and they didn't come from a culture of trust. Yeah, they came from a culture of I don't have to do this because I've been at this company so long it can't survive without me.
That the great fatal mistake of a leader is having that thought pattern, right? So Preston, like as we're talking about this, so why do change projects fail?
Oh, well, the biggest reason why they fail is that they're just pushed on people. The people involved in the change are not part of what's going on. They just have tasks to execute as part of the change, right?
Yeah, they're not getting to input anything into the process, if you will.
Right.
Okay.
And I think the other thing also is that, you know, change is treated as an event. Change is not an event. Change is a journey, right? In my experience, it takes time. So to your point, Preston, one, it's pushed, and then two, it's like it's Monday, it's done. No, it's not. It doesn't work like that.
Right. No, it's a journey, and you know that destination is the first part of the change is only one stop along the destination.
Yes.
You know, 100%. Whether it's, you know, merging departments together, merging businesses together, you know, you have to make it known that, especially to the highest levels of leadership, that look, this is step one of 10,000 that we're going to go through here. And it's going to take time for all this to mesh together.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, go ahead, Vern. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, you know, the funny thing, one thing we noticed back when Preston and I was going through this thing, right? So as I was talking, right, we start with denial. It's not happening to me, or, you know, we try to minimize it. Then we go through this fear portion of it, David, that you talked about. And then there's a middle portion where we are sort of silent, right? Where we are doing what we're asked to do. We're sort of keeping our head down. And then we get to a portion where we want to go back, right?
Yeah.
We're like, no, but I like that more. Oh, that was more simple. I like to work for that person and not, So
Right.
to your point, Preston, 1 to 10,000, right?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Preston. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's why, giving people the ownership of what's going on really helps
100%.
that. And it gives an opportunity for making things better, right? Like we say, hey, we're gonna use company A's process for whatever, and company B says, well, why are we doing that? And I really appreciate when people ask, well, why are you doing it that way? Comes across a lot better than, well, we don't do it that way.
Yes.
Yeah, and we have this tool right here. I put it up on the screen. So this is our stages of change tool, and it's a simple tool to help people start to understand change. So I have unconscious incompetence. When we talk about this, we talk about people doing things in patterns, right? 85% of our life is built into patterns. And so unconscious incompetence is a euphoric state when we are going to get change in, because what people generally do is talk about some outcome we're going to get out of it. And usually that sounds really great to everyone, that we're going to get that outcome. And this is sort of euphoric state because I don't have consciousness of what's really happening yet. Then we get into this conscious incompetence. This is where I still don't understand the change, but now I'm conscious of it. And this is probably a bigger fear state than any other state that you can that you understand. And my messaging to the team needs to change a little bit about, hey, I know you're going to be a little bit afraid as we go into these things and as this newness comes out. And then you have conscious competence, where now I'm starting to develop my new pattern, but I still need to be reminded of the things I need to do all the time. And this is where checklist comes in. And Varun, that's where your thing that you were just talking about, where sometimes I have a little bit of fear where I want to go back to where I was, where things were easy. The pattern was easy because I have all these checklists now I got to use every single time I'm doing something. And then the last stage is unconscious competence, where now I'm just doing the change and it's part of my patterns and it's working really well. And so when you're thinking about this, if you think about these different stages, the messaging needs to change as we're going through these, right?
Messaging needs to change. There needs to be checkpoints at each of these levels of change, because to your point, right, people are going to slide back. That's just human nature. So how do you sort of, to Preston's point, right, 2-minute lightning rounds, let's go. Talk it through, right? Just what comes to your mind, say it.
Yes.
Then you sort of progress one step to the other.
Yeah. And like with this, there's different approaches. Like Preston, I think you like to talk about single-threaded versus multi-threaded.
Yeah, multi-threaded is you're doing a whole bunch of things at once, and single-threaded, you're doing one thing at a time.
Yep.
And I play a game with people where I put 4 coins on each side of the table, and I said, okay, you on one side, you move all 4 at once, and you on the other side move 4 steps, and see who gets to the finish line first. And the one who is moving the 1 coin gets to the finish line first.
Yep.
And the thing about it is, once you get that one thing to the finish line, oftentimes you find that half of what you had planned to do next, you don't need to do because you've accomplished it one way or another, or something has changed and so forth. And it also gives the team like a real sense of accomplishment, as well as to, the C-suite, okay, stuff's getting done.
Yeah.
Right. And if you do it the other way, they're like, you guys are just working and nothing's getting done.
Exactly. So the 4 coins, what it's meaning, what I hear you saying it means is that the 4 coins represent the magnitude of the things I'm trying to change. So I'm trying to change 4 things at one time, moving each coin one spot, or moving one coin 4 spots ahead and getting the result. And then as you're getting that one result, the other 3 just automatically start to be worked on. Is that how you're saying it?
Yeah, yeah. It's not like you're not working on them at all or not doing any prep work, but you really put as much focus as you can on the one thing.
Yeah.
And one of the hardest questions to answer as a leader is, if I could only have one thing, what would it be?
That's our wish, right? Every day. If we could only have one thing.
Yeah. In scaling up, we have boxes for 5. And sometimes we have teams go off on these tangents where they want to do 6 or 7. And it's pretty comical to us watching this, because they'll do 6 or 7 and they won't accomplish anything. And then when they start to get back to the focus and start to get back to the more simple, I guess, if you will, and 1 or 2 things, they accomplish both of them.
Right.
It comes down to the power of simplicity. I really think that, we live in a very complex world. Yes, given, right? No choice. That's ours for the taking. But with that said, right, how do we make, to your point, David, how do we make these things as simple as possible, right? So that it's digestible, it is impactful, and then to Preston's point, you see an outcome, right? Whether it's your C-suite or whosoever, right? There is an outcome, and I tell you, it's the best possible outcome if what you're doing is as simple as possible.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. Do you have something to add to that, Preston?
Yeah, it gives the team a sense of accomplishment. Okay, like, we can do this. They have less pressure that they put on themselves and from, the outside world, the rest of the business, wherever it's coming from stakeholders or, shareholders in the business. Like, okay, you guys are getting this done. Okay, you're good. And then that fear factor also starts to go away because you're feeling good about accomplishing things.
Yeah, most definitely. I think that the way you're saying it is really interesting and has a lot of merit to it, because a lot of times we make change much harder than it needs to be.
Yes.
And a lot of times it's just because our own brain is playing tricks on us a little bit. So
yeah, definitely. And guilty as charged on that too. I spent a lot of time doing things wrong before I figured out how to do them less wrong.
Well, hey, it's time for a break again. So we're going to take a little break here, and then we're going to come back. I'm going to challenge both of you to think of a time when you really messed change up, and then what you had to do to fix it. So we'll come back. This is Strategy Sherpa Show, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back to the Strategy Sherpa Show with David Chavez. Have a question for David or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show.
All right, everybody. This is David Chavez, and we're back. This is with Preston and Varun from Assured Strategy. We are talking about change. And what I did right before we went to break is I challenged both of them to come up with a time when change didn't go very well. So, gentlemen, who wants to go first?
Yeah,
I can go. All right, go ahead, Preston.
I can hardly wait to hear this.
So, well, I was tasked with taking this very large software development team and who couldn't get anything done and getting them to get stuff done. And so I figured out in my own head what we needed to do, what had to happen. And we had a meeting and I said, this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to track it. and everybody walked away, with their, tail between their legs, or, their heads down. And it's like, okay, here we go. And I was doing everything that I had learned off of, Google and the internet on how to do change and change management. And I was updating everyone every week and having these meetings. And about 3 months in, one of the people stood up and just let me have it. And they said, if you think if the idea doesn't come from you, it's no good. You just shout at people and expect them to get things done. And I was like, whoa, 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 what's happening here? What's happening here? And I kind of went back to my assured strategy training, and I said, well, look, you and I get together and talk about what are our goals, right? Let's each write down 3 goals and 3 things that are driving us towards what we're trying to do. And the first thing that I wrote down was, we succeed or fail as a team. And that person who had stood up and let me have it read that, and he said, oh my God, oh my God. Oh, I've never been told that before. I've worked at this company for 10 years. No one has ever said that. I didn't realize you felt that way. And I was like, well, of course, we're in this together. To me, it was so obvious what I was doing, but to them, I was just being a real jerk.
Yep. You were trying to force them to do something.
Yeah. And I learned so much from that, where, look, this guy, he was throwing me under the bus in other meetings and talking behind my back and all of this stuff. And just that one thing completely changed our relationship.
Yeah. So when his fear level was at the highest, you asked him to write down 3 of his goals, and you wrote down 3 of your goals. When he heard your first one, his whole attitude changed.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he said, I don't even want to share what I wrote down.
Okay.
Because now that I think about it, the things that I wrote down are all about me.
Yeah.
And not about us.
Right.
And, so then we went out to lunch, and, we came back.
So what did you learn out of that?
I learned that involving people at the beginning is so important.
Right.
And, some statements like that, I call it a team agreement. Okay, everybody write down how they want to interact, how they want to be together as a team, how we're going to get through this together. What are 3 things that are important to you? Yeah. And then we share that. Like, even if there's like 20 people and it takes all day, it's well worth that all day at the beginning to get people together. And it's in a way, it's a team building exercise, but it's not, going out mountain climbing or anything. It's just, a way to be honest with one another and leading by example, as far as I'm putting myself out there.
Yeah.
Right.
I liked how you talked about the time too. The time it takes to have that meeting, like it could last all day long. And sometimes it does, but you said it's really worth it in the end. Why did you say it that way?
Well, if you don't, before I did that, the timeline to get the change done was going, we need another month, another 2 months, another 3 months.
Yep.
Right. And that one day gets rid of all of that, call it noise that slows you down. Yeah.
No, and that's why I wanted you to come back to that, because I think it's really important when you talked about that. You threw that in there real quick, but a lot of people don't understand that. They just look at the time of that one meeting. And what we often will say to our clients is, well, you don't have time not to do this meeting, because what'll end up happening is you'll get buried in a million pieces of fear along the way. and with that everyone has. And what you're trying to do in that meeting is build that trust and keep that fear in check.
Yeah, and it's
Exactly.
it's very hard, right? Like, I'm just gonna play devil's advocate for a minute, right? If you're coming from the other side or the outside or like the receiving side, right? You go in and say, hold on, I got a full stack of days worth of work to do. You're telling me that I gotta leave everything, that no one's gonna do it for me, and I have to spend 8 hours in the room with you?
Yeah.
Why? Right? That's the sort of the first reaction to this thing. And I think, David, to your point, right? It's almost a leap of faith. You have to trust in the person to go, yes, that 8 hour investment will pay out in the long run.
That's correct. Yep. And I really love how we're talking about this, because a lot of people miss this in the grand scheme.
Yeah.
And Preston, I love that you brought it up, but I interrupted you earlier on. Do you remember what you were going to say? Because I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just got excited about what you said.
Well, I don't remember what I was going to say, but I have another thought around this with what Varun said is, when someone says, oh, I got all this work, it's so on. And I say, so I'd love to ask the question or say it back to them. I was like, so what you're saying is you're too busy being inefficient in doing what you're doing to take the time to be efficient in what you're doing.
Yeah. Nice statement back to them. And usually when you say statements like that back to people, it gives them clarity, because they're just stuck in their pattern of doing those inefficient things all the time, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Or if it's, just a merger, look, this thing is coming. It's going to happen.
Right.
And you're either going to come along on the ship, or it's going to run you over.
Yep. And it's going to hurt your career big time.
Yeah.
Right. So your career is going to change here, and we want you to be here, or it's going to change and you go somewhere else. One way or another, it's going to change. Here, we're giving you a voice in it. You go start at another company, you have no choice typically.
Yeah. And thank goodness that guy called you out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And because it gave you the clarity. Hey, Varun, let's hear a little bit about what yours is.
Yeah. So all good points, including the fact that Preston can be a jerk sometimes, but that is
hey, we got to get that in there. All right.
You got to get that in. Right,
that was the first chip on the ice. All right, here we go.
There we go.
All right.
So,
and by the way, that person's name was Varun.
Oh yeah, well, that's no surprise about Preston.
I forgot. We've all worked together before, so this is just too.
And so what I went through it, and Preston will get a chuckle out of this because I'm sure he'll remember. But when we went through a merger, one of the things that hit us was we had an old and clunky CRM, right? We used the CRM for every possible thing in this world that you can think of. We had hard-coded and all possible 4-letter word, that thing, up and down, right? We were really, that was sort of our lifeline. If that didn't exist, we didn't know what to do with ourselves. And we had to change from that to a different CRM that was being used by the quote unquote mothership, right? And a change that should have taken, 6-9 months took us 5 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And one of the most important things why it took that much amount of time was because we complicated the heck out of it. We wanted to chew the elephant all possible ways to Sunday. We could not break it down into simple pieces to save our lives. And that is the root of why it took 5 years. And you add on top of people's emotions and their particular choices in terms of what they like versus what they disliked. And then to Preston's point, right? It felt like that the mothership was sort of pushing down a system down our throat, when ultimately what the mothership was using was way more efficient than our clunky thing that we had lost support of 10 years ago.
Right. And that's that fear that kicks in, right? So okay, yeah, this system will be great. It'll be brand new. That's that euphoric state. Yeah, this will be great. It'll be easier. Then when we start to get into it and start to actually introduce a new system, then the fear starts kicking in. 5 years worth in your case.
Yeah.
That's a long time. So what did you learn from that, Varun? What did you take away?
I think the biggest thing to take away was that, look, I think first things first, right? You really sit down and talk through why this change is going to happen. Why are we going to move to this other CRM? What are the advantages of moving to this other CRM? Acknowledging the fact that, look, we're going to lose certain things that we like in that old clunky CRM of ours, right? With change, everything is not rosy on the other side, right? There's going to be aspects of give and take. There are some compromises. There's no change without a compromise. So I think first things first, acknowledging that there's going to be compromise, but life will be better in the long run, right? So that was first things first that I learned. Second thing was, okay, you break it down, right? You don't have to eat the elephant together. It's not humanly possible. So can we break down aspects of the CRM that we want to take on first, things that are low-hanging fruit for us, and then aspects of the CRM that we feel are so intricate to our business that maybe should go last, right?
Yes.
Rather than like just hopscotching the whole thing and getting nothing done.
Yeah, I like how you said that too, because what'll end up happening is we'll start training ourselves on the new system with the easy stuff. And then when we get into the things that are more difficult, then we're already pretty good at the system. And we may understand that we can actually work in those things in some other way that we didn't really see at first.
Yeah. And a lot of times, right, the other point Preston was talking about before was, a lot of times we've moved that one coin 4 spaces. Suddenly we look at it and go, oh, damn, we don't need to move the other coin. It's already moved 2 places because of the work that I did on this side. So I worked on one process. It killed 30% of my other process right there. I'm good.
Yep. And I loved how Preston, I've never seen that coin thing done before, but I really love that methodology because it makes it really clear and understanding what happens. And Varun, I love your summary of that. This is a Strategy Sherpa show. We have to take a break right now. We're having a pretty great conversation. Preston and Varun just shared with one of their failures with change. And so we're going to come back right after these messages.
Welcome back to the Strategy Sherpa Show with David Chavez. Have a question for David or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show.
Hey everyone, this is David Chavez, Strategy Sherpa Show, and here with 2 of my colleagues having a conversation about change. But I wanted to remind you about some of the events we have coming up May the 23rd from 1 to 2. This is Preston. He is here on this call with us, or on the show with us, and he's going to be doing process-driven tactics for cost savings. So much cash wasted and inefficiency in processes. And people thrive on inefficiency. I think that sometimes when you're trying to get them through the change and look at the process to make it more efficient, they have fallen in love with what they're doing. And even though the steps aren't necessary, and it's really interesting, Preston's going to be talking about some of that. And we already have about 50 people signed up for the workshop. So we have a room for about 50 more. And then we're going to be doing mastering time management, prioritize to thrive. And that's LJ. Lisa Jane Vargas is going to be doing that on June 13th from 1 to 2 p.m. Central Time. These are all Central Time on these. And that is a very informative webinar, how to be more efficient. And then Scaling Up Workshop, Warren Sager and I in San Diego, California on the 25th. And we probably have about 7 to 8 seats left in that one too. And then we have several other workshops and webinars that we're doing all throughout the year. All of those are on the website if you want to get on assuredstrategy.com events, and you can see all of those on there. And let's come back and summarize some of our insights today, guys. Like change management, easy?
But never easy.
Oh, never easy.
Yeah.
And I say anything that's worth doing is not easy. As you can see, like neither Varun or I were like easy. Like what's the best way that we can say that with our real feelings about it are without offending half the universe.
I was watching both of your faces right after I said it. Both of you almost started cracking up and falling out of your chairs. And I said,
I was like, David, trick question.
So it's never easy. And what's the biggest variable that makes it so challenging?
I think it's the people.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about the people? What are they doing?
Well, the one thing that we said was about their fear.
Yep.
In a number of different levels. Fear. Oh, once this is done, I'm going to lose my job. Once this is done, well, I don't have time to work on this because I'm just going to have to go back to doing what I would usually do, and that work is just going to pile up, and I won't have time to do that. And then
I don't understand why this is being done. This is being done to me, right?
Yeah.
The whole thing about I'm the victim, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I love it. I love it, especially like when you, Varun, when you said this is being done to me. This is generally the mentality that's going on right at first. And what, Preston, let's go back to what you said earlier about the change and making sure that you're having those conversations and building that trust. Because if the trust work is done, this becomes a little easier. Is that a fair comment?
Oh, yeah, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, if you already have trust on your team. So where we spend a lot of time is building that trust within the change. Is that a fair comment?
Yes.
Yep. And that's the upfront, right? We were talking about spending the 8 hours, spending the 2 days, spending the week. That's really what it is, right? You're sitting down and saying, open up, guys. Say what's on your mind, right? Whatever comes, just all is good. And then that's sort of how you chip away at that trust, David.
Yeah. And I love how you said it. What we got to get everyone talking about it and sharing with it how they're seeing it. And and can't have any judgment during that time because their fear is real to them.
100%.
Yeah. And it doesn't really matter that we don't agree with their fear or we have different types of fear. We have to listen to them and understand it so we can understand how to help them through that change.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It takes a village, and I think every single person of that village is as important as the other, and you need that, right? You want to be felt that, look, my fear is being taken care of. I had a voice in this thing. Whether you agreed with it, whether you were asked before, all those things go to the wayside just as soon as you have a voice.
Yes.
As simple as that.
Yeah. And a lot of time, I don't know if it's a lot of times, but I have had a number of occasions where what someone said during that time changed the whole plan.
Yeah.
Right. Of how we were gonna go about it. So you know what? You're right.
Yeah. A lot of times our people have a lot of the answers we're wrestling with in our head. What is right and wrong, right? And if we don't sit down and have these conversations with them, I use the analogy of George Washington often when I'm speaking to teams about this, because a lot of times the leaders think they have to have all the answers and know everything. And what I ask is, I say, how many battles did George Washington win in the Revolutionary War? And the answer is 6. There was 36 battles. So which ones did he win? The most important ones. And as leaders, we got to quit trying to win every battle and think we have every answer to every question. We don't. But what we have to do is make sure that we're listening and hearing, because they may enlighten us. And then we have to pick and choose which battles we're going to win, because if we win all of them, we're going to alienate people and they're not going to want to help us through this change.
Yes.
Yeah. And one of the things that actually you taught us, David, was in those situations when you're a leader and someone says, oh, what should we do about X? just turn it back on them. Say, well, what
Yeah.
do you think we should do?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And that's empowering.
Yeah. And sometimes you hear things that you never even thought of yourself.
Right.
Yeah. No, I once I used to report to a leader back in the day, probably one of the most favorite people I report to. His thing was, look, my job is to hire people that are smarter than me all day long. Yep. I just surround myself with people that are smarter than me, and then the answers come, right? I just facilitate.
Yeah. And I'm going to leverage that comment because I had the opportunity, I think it was almost 8 or 9 years ago now, to work with the two of you. And here we are 8 or 9 years later, and we're together again. And I feel very fortunate to have both of you on my team because I think both of you are much smarter than me on many things. And it's very good to have you on the team. And Preston, you've been here a little bit longer than Varun, but the enlightenment that you've given me has been tremendous. And I think that that comes from having those open and honest conversations and being allowed to say what you need to say. So right. I think we're talking about two different things all day. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. And any closing words or thoughts to the audience?
I'll say, going back to what I started with, change is personal. It would be awesome if you acknowledge that aspect of it. It is a journey. Just navigate you and your team through the journey, and you will come out better on the other side.
Very good, Varun.
Yeah, and I think that, change is a massive exercise on your listening skills if you're one leading the change.
Yes. Yeah. And I would just say, don't let your fear rule you. Right. Mm-hmm. So that would be my comment. Hey guys, thank you for joining me today. I welcome these opportunities to where we can all share some of our wisdom. And both of you, welcome to the team. I know you've been around a little bit so far, but I'm really excited to be working with both of you and helping our clients succeed.
Sounds good.
This is the Strategy Sherpa Show. This is David Chavez, and we're signing off. Thank you very much for joining us.